And it's here that we find Oberon Zell Ravenheart, a man who describes himself as the primate of his unusual family. He is a brilliant artist and an inventor, and the originator of such terms as neo-pagan and polyamorous. These terms have changed the way we think about our society since the 60s. In fact, it was he that is credited with starting the whole neo-pagan movement. Oberon also wrote the Gaia thesis. It was this original paper that first purported and showed evidence that the Earth was in fact one living organism. He has also bred unicorns and sold them to Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey's circus. He has found funding to go in search of mermaids. And he also founded the first pagan church in the US, which was called the Church of All Worlds. This church was based on the high precepts out of a science fiction novel called Stranger in a Strange Land. And now he is opening up the first Hogwarts-style school to actually teach magic to gifted youngsters. In short, he is an activist who actually lives what he believes. He is a genius in the style of Leonardo da Vinci, and today we get to meet him and his beautiful soulmate, Morning Glory.
Many years ago, I was all on my own, and I had a separate life. I was a kind of a witch searching for other witches and pagans and whatnot. And this was back in the 1960s, and I did a self-initiation ritual for myself, and it was kind of an ordeal, and I dove into a pool of water and took a new name and began looking for other people of my kind. And it was a little bit of a hard search because most people were underground that were at all public. And I had a dream in which I dreamed that I would meet this man that would transform my life. And I memorized his features because I've always been a dream worker. And I memorized his features, and I told my partner at the time about this, and of course he was a little concerned, but we've always had an open relationship, and my partner at the time and our relationship was starting to, he wasn't exactly, I mean, he was sort of a pagan, but he wasn't really a priest. And I was looking for a priest, and so I had this dream that I would meet this man, and then I kind of wondered, well, when is this going to happen, you know? And 2 years later, I heard about Llewellyn Publications was having a festival, and they were inviting witches and pagans and all sorts of people, and so I hitchhiked to Minneapolis from Oregon. Which is quite a little journey, and I hitchhiked there, and I went into the conference, and had a membership there and met people, and I was sort of, wow, everybody's pretty straight arrows, in business suits and whatnot, and here I am, this little hippie wearing the robes and whatnot, and so I met a man there that helped give me directions, and that we just kind of connected and had a good energy together, and we kind of saw each other off and on, and he seemed a little familiar to me, and then I went to his workshop that he was giving and realized that I had signed up for all his workshops and just on the basis of the names and didn't know who he was. And when he gave the workshop about the Gaia hypothesis, the theogenesis, I just lost it entirely, and I walked up to him and said, oh, we have to talk, and he took me by the hand and he just walked off stage, and we went into a corner and took our hands together, and as we looked into each other's eyes, we dream fasted, and all of his life and all of my life just kind of poured like water into the same vessel. And I thought, this must be the man. But there were some differences that just a little bit not quite exactly like I remembered in the dream. And I was all torn up because I still had my other partner, I had a child. It was like my life was really, the goddess had really given me rolled the dice in a really complex pattern. And so I decided I was going to go with him to St. Louis and take training and learn about what I needed to learn, and just to be with him. And at the time they were bringing the car up to travel and go back to St. Louis. And I picked up one of the booklets, the program booklets, and was sort of thumbing through it. And I never got one because it passed in the mail and when I was hitchhiking. And so I looked through it and I turned to the page where he was listed as a speaker. And when I looked at that page, there it was, like cut with scissors out of my dream, the face from the dream, right there. And I was staring at it, and he walked up and I looked at him and I looked at the picture and I said, "This picture doesn't look exactly like you do." He said, "That's right, it's an old picture, it was taken 2 years ago." So at that point I stopped kind of struggling like a fish, you know, hooked on the hook of destiny, and surrendered to what the gods had laid the plan. I had asked for it, and they had given it to me in spades. And so at that point I said, okay. And I immersed myself in the Church of All Worlds, and I studied everything I could, and I trained to become a priestess in about 9 months from when I began my studies in St. Louis. I qualified and was ordained as a priestess. And during that time, I traveled back and forth between Oregon. I was literally for 2 years like a commuting wife between my previous partner and our child together, and going through the process of separation and all that, and doing it in an amicable way. And then also we were hand-fasted and all that, and then eventually we got legally married. And so, but these things all were like, my life was a real crazy, crazy zoo. But it was what it was my passion. And I had found it, and I found the Church of All Worlds to be a thing that allowed me to integrate my scientific background and also my magical, mystical background, and to heal these two things and to bring them together. And Oberon and I recognized each other as soulmates and have been together for 31 years now. And we've had many adventures. And I've managed to make my life work. And it just keeps getting more and more wild and magical. There is no end to it from this life and many others.
What she said. Well, that's quite a story itself, of course. A very long, 40-some year saga. But it began, I guess, when I started college in 1961. I grew up in the 50s world that you see in all those old TV